Hello, welcome to the second module of the course Economic Management and Policy Analysis. And we'll be discussing about the principles of macroeconomics management, macroeconomic management. And we'll be looking into the national income concepts and measurements. That is, we look into the GDP, the GNP, and then the NNP. We will look also into the business cycle and economic fluctuation. We also look into the employment, inflation, and growth, unemployment rather, inflation and growth. We'll look into the fiscal and monetary policy tools. And finally, we will look at the stabilization policy. Macroeconomics management focuses on the overall performance and stability of an economy, dealing with broad aggregates rather than individual markets. It actually provides the framework for government and policymakers to monitor, regulate, and guide economic activities to achieve sustainable growth and stability. And by the end of this module, you'll be able to understand economic indicators and policy for addressing fluctuation and imbalances. Taking the first aspect of the module, which is the national income concept and measurements. What is national income? It is actually that which represents the total value of all goods and services produced within an economy over a specified period, and it is a key indicator for economic planning, policy formulation, and international comparison. And when we talk about the national income, we talk about the gross domestic product, the gross national product, and the net national product. The gross domestic product is the total monetary value of all final goods and services produced within a country's geographical boundaries. And it is measured by production, income, or expenditure approaches and can be nominal, real, or capital. And for gross national product, it actually extends GDP by including income earned by a country's residents, both domestically and abroad, and it can be calculated mathematically as GNP is equal to GDP plus net factor income from abroad, and it reflects the economic strength of the nation's citizens. And also for the net national product, it adjusts GNP for depreciation, that is wear and tear of capital assets. And mathematically, it is the NNP is equal to GNP minus depreciation. And it actually reflects the sustainable level of production and long-term productive capacity. What are the importance of measuring national income? The first is that it provides an overview of growth trend and living standard. Also, it helps governments to design fiscal and monetary policy in terms of policy formulation. It also facilitates comparison of economic strength between nations. Also, it serves as a proxy for societal well-being, though with limitations. And lastly, it guides public and private investment by showing growth and decline areas. We also look into the business cycle and economic fluctuation, business cycle and economic fluctuation. And when we talk about business cycle and economic fluctuation, we say economic activities fluctuate over time, alternating between periods of expansion and contraction. And these recurrent changes are known as business cycle. So, which is crucial for policymakers, businesses, and individuals due to their direct impact on production, employment, investment, and consumption. And according to Hatter, F. Burns, and Wesley C. Mitchell, 1946, a type of fluctuation found in a aggregate economic activity of nations that organize their work mainly in business enterprises. A cycle consists of expansion occurring at about um, the same time in many economic activities, followed by similarly general recessions, contractions, and revivals, which merge into the expansion phase of the next cycle. And this is actually business fluctuation is a type of fluctuation found in the aggregate economic activity of nations that organize their work mainly in business enterprises. And it consists of expansion occurring at about the same time in many economic activities, followed by similar general recession, contraction, and revivals, which merge into the expansion phase of the next circle. What are the phases of business cycle? We have the four phases, which is the expansion, the peak, the contraction, and the trough. And when we talk about the expansion, it is an increase in output, income, employment, rising confidence, investments, and also consumption. And at the peak phase of business cycle, it's the highest point of activity, maximum output, near full employment, strong inflation pressure. These are the characteristics of the peak phase of the business cycle. And we have the contraction point or phase whereby there is a decline in GDP, in income and employment. And also there is a decreased investment and spending and a rising unemployment. And the truth phase is the lowest point, and it is a end of recession. Economic activity stabilizes at this point before recovery begins. And the causes of fluctuation as it pertains to business cycle are that business cycle are influenced by demand side factor, which is the confidence, the investment, and supply side factor as it pertains to the technology, natural disaster, and also the external factor, which deals with the global trade crisis, and the money financial factor, which deals with about the money supply and the market bubbles. On the part of the unemployment, inflation, and growth are set to be discussed in this module. Macroeconomics management balances employment, price stability, and long-term economic growth. And these three indicators are vital for nations' economic performance, requiring sound policy to ensure steady progress without excessive volatility. And for when we talk about unemployment, it's actually individuals willing and able to work who cannot find job. And we have the types of the unemployment to include the frictional unemployment, structural unemployment, cyclical unemployment, and seasonal unemployment. And persistent unemployment can actually lead to reduced income, weak demand, and also social instability. Looking at inflation, it's actually a sustained rise in general price level. Note that word, sustained. It's a sustained rise in general price level. And the type includes the demand pull, the cost push, hyperinflation, and deflation. And excessive inflation undermines purchasing power, the saving and investment of the individuals in a particular country or a region. And as per the economic growth, it's a sustained increase in productive capacity measured by GDP. It is driven by capital accumulation, technological innovation, institutional quality, and natural resources, and is crucial for improving living standard and reducing poverty. And these are interconnected. In terms of rapid growth can reduce unemployment but may increase inflation. Also, policy aims for balance. Policymakers aims for balance, often considering the Philip curves, short-term trade-off between inflation and unemployment. Looking at the aspect of fiscal and monetary policy too, these are tools that are used to stabilize the economy, they promote growth, and also ensure sustainable development by regulating aggregate demand, controlling inflation, and reducing unemployment. So these are tools that can be used in the unemployment, the inflation, and also aggregate demand, as said. And the fiscal policy use the government spending and taxation to influence the economy. And when we talk about this too comes in form of government expenditure, and this capital, which are infrastructures, and recurrent, which are salary spendings. At this point, uh, there is increased aggregate demand and creates job as such. And this is a means of where a government use to the spendings to influence economy. Also, the government can use taxation to influence the economy, where direct tax, which is income or corporate, and indirect tax, which is VAT taxes, are used. And this cutting taxes will actually boost consumption, while raising taxes will reduce inflation. And lastly on that, we look at borrowing. Borrowing. When we talk about borrowing, it's financing deficits managed for fiscal sustainability. And this is also a tool that is being used to influence the economy. And when we talk about the monetary policy, it's an action by the central bank to control money supply and credit. An action by the central bank to control money supply and credit. And the central bank makes use of two tools in order to achieve this. The first one is the quantitative tool. And when we talk about the quantitative tool, it is open market operation, as is buying or selling security, reserve requirements, which talks about the bank deposit ratio, and the discount rate, which talks about the central bank lending rate. This is the quantitative tool that central banks use to control money supply and credit in a country. Also, when we talk about the quality tool, these are credit controls as it pertains to directing credit, and also moral suasion, which deals with persuading banks, and lastly, direct regulation, which deals with certain limits. These tools are used in order to ensure that money is being controlled, money supply and credit is being controlled in a particular nation. And looking at the last part of the module, stabilization policy. Economy strategy to maximize fluctuation, maintain price stability, and achieve sustainable growth, counteracting adverse effects like inflation, unemployment, and recession. And when we talk about this policy, it's actually an economic strategy which is used to minimize fluctuation, and it's also used to maintain price stability and achieve sustainable growth. And this actually counteract adverse effects like the inflation, unemployment, and recession that we've talked about before. What is the objective, or what are the objectives of stabilization policy? The first is that it serves to ensure price stability. Stabilization policy ensures price stability. Also, it helps to in employment generation. These policies help in employment generation. Also, it helps in economic growth. And also, it helps in balancing payment stability. And lastly, stabilization policy helps investors' confidence. It helps to boost their confidence as they believe that indeed there will be stability at that period they are investing as such. So, and looking at the types of stabilization policy, we have the government fiscal, which is the government spending or taxation. We have the monetary, which is money supply or interest rate. We have the exchange rate and trade, and we have the income stabilization policy in terms of wage or price control. And what are the challenges of stabilization policy? The first is time lag, um, time constraints. Also, we have the political constraints. Also, it has a challenge as per global shock, pandemic, and the likes, and also structural issues. These are the challenges that stabilization policy actually faces, and the policy are crucial for creating a predictable macroeconomic environment, reducing uncertainty and preventing crisis. In conclusion, macroeconomics management provides the framework for guiding economic performance, stabilizing fluctuation, and promoting sustainable development. And understanding the national income, business cycle, unemployment, inflation, and growth enables policymakers to design effective strategies and fiscal and monetary policy tools, when coordinated well, are central to balancing demand, ensuring price stability, creating employment, and also stimulating growth. And the stabilization policy helps manage shock and maintain investors' confidence, underscoring their vital role in achieving inclusive and sustainable development. Thank you.